Hello, Stephen White, Trek Boy 89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, I just watched Star Trek Lower Decks episode 9, and it was actually good. It was actually really good. It actually felt like an episode of Star Trek. I was shocked and overwhelmed and a little emotional. It was really good. Basically, the episode was called Wej Dej, spelled Wejdduj, so I'm not quite sure how that was supposed to be pronounced. It starts off on the Cerritos, and basically they are just warping somewhere, so they're not actually having any active missions for a couple of days, so they're all bored, and they're basically just doing their hobbies and filling time, and Mariner has to hang out with her mother, and most of the lower deck characters are all hanging out with their bridge buddies, who are all friends from the bridge they've befriended. They hang out with mostly, I think, to, I don't know if they're just doing it to learn or if they're just doing it to, help their careers. I'm not sure. But Boilerman doesn't have one, so he's complaining about that, and that's basically the opening scene. And then we go to the lower decks of the Klingon ship, and we also see the lower decks of a Vulcan ship, and for a second we see the lower decks of a Pack-led ship, although that's mostly just a joke. It's just one scene, and they're just sitting there like, stupid question, stupid answer, and that's sort of it. But the Klingon ship and the Vulcan ship are a major part of the story. There's sort of three stories happening with the lower decks crews on each ship. Now, the Klingon ship, basically, the junior officer is just an honourable officer trying to do his best, trying to impress the other officers. And they sort of are just, using him for all the, lower decks things like they mostly do. But he eventually impresses his captain and gets made the second in command. Now, the Vulcan officer is, she's a rebel. She's just outrageous. She's really just acknowledging her instinct and just is basically, she basically just is aware that there's more to science and Starfleet and life than just logic. The Vulcan, sorry, not Starfleet, her basically serving. And she's actually trying to improve things and trying to get her captain to actually see that. And he does actually listen to her, and on a level she proves logically that he should trust her instinct, and he does. And she's always improving things. She's improving the warp drive and stuff like that. So we go back to the Cerritos, and Boilerman is desperately trying to suck up to a bridge buddy, and he goes after the pretty boy first officer. I can't remember his name. And he finds out that he hangs out with guys who are all from Hawaii, because they all grew up in Hawaii. So he pretends he grew up in Hawaii too. And he's kind of torn by this, like, I'm lying just to get ahead. Should I do this? What's more important? Being friends with this guy and improving my career, or actually being honest and so forth. And he tries to do that but fails initially. Now, we go back to the Klingon ship, and the Klingon discovers that the captain has been using the Pack-leds and giving them weapons and helping them to try and destabilise the whole region, because he doesn't want peace with Starfleet. He wants to destabilise the section, take it over, cause war between the Federation and the Pack-leds and so forth, and join in on that. So the Klingon officer, the junior officer, is not okay with this because it's not honourable. He's using someone else to fight their battles. He's using deception. He's not confronting them directly. He's attacking their allies because he wants to make them enemies and so forth. So he protests that, which of course doesn't go well. And there's actually, before we get to progressing the rest of that story, there's a few funny scenes in this, and I was actually laughing a bit. And the funniest scene, though, was before Boilerman actually gets into the little Hawaiian group, he gives up on the idea initially, and he goes to Rufford, who is in a pottery class with the Bajoran security officer. And he's like, well, maybe I can share your bridge buddy. And then he starts talking about pottery, because basically the Bajoran officer, the security officer, basically channels his rage through the clay, basically. And Boilerman makes the mistake of asking him, did you develop your appreciation for pottery on Bajor? And he's outraged because, of course, on Bajor he was fighting a war. He was basically a terrorist fighting fascists. So he just about kills Boilerma, who has to run out, and Rufford has to calm him down and turn him back to the clay. And it's pretty fun. He focuses back on it, and he's like, starts to calm down, and he's talking about, I'm going to make this into an ashtray that looks like a puppy. And he's like, yes, puppy. It was just funny. I laughed. It was done well. And I was like, am I actually enjoying this? Like, I'm not waiting for the second shoe to drop. Normally, in the other episodes, I'm waiting for the slap in the face as a Star Trek fan. There's normally something that comes. There was a couple of episodes where there wasn't, but I'm still waiting for it. Because the first season wasn't very good. The second season started off okay, and it just started to get slowly better and better and better, and they seemed to be rolling back all the issues of the first season. And there were a couple of episodes where I didn't have any problems. And the last episode was pretty good, except for that Boilerma shop, which I had a problem with. But other than that, everything was good. But about halfway through this episode, I realised there's no shoe going to drop. I'm not going to get a slap in the face. They're actually trying. The person who wrote this, Katheryn Lin, is actually trying to write a Star Trek episode. She actually knows Star Trek. She knows what these characters should be like, and she knows how to be funny and make comedy and set it in Starfleet, so they're not making fun of Starfleet or making fun of Star Trek by extension. It wasn't cynical, it wasn't mean-spirited, the characters weren't all narky and snarking at each other and trying to humiliate each other and talking a mile a minute. They felt like Starfleet officers, and the humour was just in the situations. And that's how this should have been done from the start, not making fun of Star Trek, but making fun within Star Trek. And it really worked, and I was like, wow, is this happening? So we get to the last part. Basically, the Cerritos detects something, and they want to go investigate it. The Vulcan ship detects something strange as well, so in the same section, and they want to investigate it. Actually, the officer convinces the captain to investigate it because she's just good at logic. So they both head there, and the Cerritos gets there first, and they find the Klingons are with the Pakleds, and they sort of, at first they think that the Klingons are actually being attacked by the Pakleds or being hassled by the Pakleds because they know what the Pakleds are like. They don't realise what's happening. And then the Pakleds start attacking the Starfleet officers because the reason why they were drawn there was because the Pakleds had set off a bomb that the Klingons had given them, and that had attracted everyone to the location. And they started attacking the Cerritos, and it was well shot. It really felt like a Star Trek action scene with the ship battle. And the Klingon officer is like, "This, we can't do this. This is not honourable." And he actually challenges his captain. And during the fight, when the captain's about to attack him, the targ that the junior officer had been walking and taking care of actually attacks the captain and bites his arm that's holding the knife, which helps the junior officer get the edge. And then the Klingon captain actually kicks the targ. I'm like, oh no, he has to die. I mean, he was going to die anyway, but he has to die, so he kicked the targ. And he stabs him, and he's dead, and he becomes the captain, and he withdraws. And then the Vulcans show up, or I think actually the Vulcans showed up before that, and they were getting fired on, because the Klingons weren't firing, they were letting the Pakleds do it, which was a problem. They tricked the Pakleds into fighting their battle for them. So the Vulcans showed up and put themselves in between the Cerritos and the Pakleds, and then they were absorbing the fire, their shields were going down, and the Vulcan officer convinces the captain to use her new advanced shields that she'd been developing. And he's like, it's untested. What if it doesn't work? She's like, trust my instincts. She said it in a more selling it by logic way, but he did. And it worked. They went from below low shields to 120%, and they were able to withstand the attack from the Pakleds and fight them off. And the Cerritos joined in, and they actually had a pretty good battle sequence, and the Pakleds retreat. And the Klingons had already retreated, but the Pakleds retreat, and it was just well shot, and it was well done, and it had emotion. They had some James Horner-esque music playing, and I swear to God, I'll admit it, I cried for a second. I think I was a bit overwhelmed because I felt like I was watching Star Trek, and it's been 16 years since I've felt like anything that's been produced was Star Trek. Discovery Season 1 was... Season 2 had a couple of good episodes, but they always were undermined by something that kind of slapped the fans in the face, so you could never quite enjoy it. Picard was a lost cause. But Season 2 of this started to get good, and I really started to feel like, wow, this is actually good. I feel like I'm watching Star Trek again. And it was a bit overwhelming. I felt like, is there hope? If they could turn this show around in a season, and that's the sad thing, there's only one episode left. It's finally gotten good, and I've only got one episode to look forward to. But season 3 will probably be good then, if season 2 has gotten to this level, if they remain on this. I mean, they should get this Katheryn Lin lady to write like every episode. She knows how to write Star Trek with humour, with action, comedy. She knew how to make these characters like Star Trek have some moral play in there. Because during the battle, Boilerman actually admits to the other guys that he's not from Hawaii, and then they all realise they're all from the moon, and they all end up being on... they go back and having their own little gang without him, so he ends up getting dropped out of that group. But he at least tells the truth. And they win the battle. The Vulcans helped, but the Vulcans soon left because, basically, is there any damage? No, okay, goodbye, boom. And then we're just on the recreation deck, and Boilerman is bemoaning the fact that he didn't find a bridge buddy, and the other guys say, look, next time we're on, stuck on warp and, got a couple of days, we'll all do something together so you're not left out, basically. And it's like, okay. So he goes over to the bar, and this little cadet, I guess, because he's less than an ensign, comes over to him and says, I'm having trouble. And the first officer, I've forgotten his name, the pretty boy first officer, is basically sent him over, and he said, I was told you're the best, most organised officer and you could help me. And then they become friends and he helps him. And it's nice because he's got a buddy, but it's not about him trying to forward his crew. He's actually helping this other kid who's below him. And it's just a really nice little sentiment, and it's just what Star Trek should be. And the whole episode was what Star Trek should be. The Klingon character was honouring honour. The Vulcan, she knew what Spock had learned, and she even quotes him accidentally by saying, logic is the beginning of, everything. It's not the end. And I don't know, like I said, I was overwhelmed because it actually felt like Star Trek. I really enjoyed it. And I've only got one episode to look forward to. But my hope is that if they can fix this show at this late stage, maybe Strange New Worlds will be good from the start, and we'll actually have a live-action Star Trek show from next year. So I'm feeling really optimistic, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm going to go... I've already done this video once, and I went in too many directions, and I really dragged it out, and I'm doing it again, and I'm still up to 12 minutes. Damn it. Sorry for taking so long, but I just felt overwhelmed. There was a lot to talk about, and I'm really excited and happy, and I'm going to go. Feel free to share, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think. Yeah, I'm really hopeful for Strange New Worlds, and I'm going to enjoy the last episode.